Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, a big welcome. I am going to just hold off coloring for a few minutes while I wait for you to join me. I hope that you've had a very good day and a good week. As you can see on my page here, I have my swatches and my color planning, which I'm finding very, very helpful. And we are currently coloring in Kanoka Egusa's English version called Garden of Fairytale Animals, also known as Rhapsody in the Forest. So if you have the Rhapsody in the Forest version instead of the newer English version, don't worry, it's the same pictures we're coloring in. And we are going to be coloring in our squirrel page. So last live video we did some of the tree house or the birdhouse when we did some of the leaves. I will be continuing the leaves off camera because they're pretty much the same principle. And today we are going to do the branches and the acorns, and if we have time we'll move on to some of the chipmunks. There's two chipmunks here. As always, I put a piece of cardstock behind my page just to protect the illustrations. And I also found my makeup brush, which I use to just dust off any residue from my pencils or any bits that I erase. I find that quite helpful. Right, so I'm going to get started over here. If you do join me, please do say hello in the chats. I do enjoy talking to you or chatting with you. All right, so for the acorns, I'm going to be using PC1034, which is Seashell Pink. Oh, sorry, PC1093, which is Seashell Pink, and we'll use that for our highlights. I'm using Goldenrod PC1034. I'm using Burnt Ochre PC943 as my mid-tone, and then for shadows I will be using Dark Brown PC946. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down a base using my Goldenrod, and I'm just going to zoom you into some of these acorns. Zoom you in nice and close so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm just going to lay the goldenrod as a base on several acorns. Now I've chosen a very autumnal palette, and I was thinking as a background I will possibly do very dark greens, and the reason I'm going to do that is to help make my picture stand out. If you look on your color wheel, green is a complementary color for yellow. So, and also the reds, it's directly opposite red in the color wheel, so that makes it a very good complementary color. So I think it will offset the whole picture, which we're doing largely in orange, deep oranges, deep reds, deep yellows, and we will throw in some grays, but I think if we use a nice muted green it will work really well for a bit of a background. Hi Dawn, how are you? It's great to have you. Thanks for joining. I'm glad you are well. It's turning into a bit more of a winter. I've heard that some of the northern hemisphere has been getting some snow. Have you had any snow where you stay? Oh, that is quite warm. It's lovely and warm. Okay, so now that I've done a base coat, I'm going to bring in my burnt ochre PC943, and I'm going to build up these colors. I'm going to come underneath the acorn cap, and on the top here I'm going to leave quite a bit of a highlight. And I'm just going quite lightly because I want to just place my shadows and my highlights, and then from there I will work up my layers. And then a little bit in here. So it's basically the same concept on all the acorns, so it's not terribly difficult. It's really just knowing where you want your shadows and your highlights, and then building up your layers. Alright, so now we're going to go and put in our shadow, which is dark brown PC946. Now if you want to, you can have a reference photo and just follow that. I'm just using some of the artist's guidelines here to kind of guide me. And also I'm aware that like on this acorn, the cap is going to cast a little bit of a shadow, so I'm going to just use that as well. So we have in our back garden the branches of an oak tree dangling into our yard. And the oak tree is actually in our next door neighbor's garden. So every autumn or fall, we get a huge amount of acorns dropping into our garden. And I actually need to make a plan some weekend when it's not raining to go and actually rake up all the acorns. And in the oak tree, we have a family of squirrels. And what they do is they will go and find acorns and plant them in my herbs, in my roses, in my fruit trees. And come spring, I have to pull out baby oak trees before they get shoot out too many deep roots and cause issues with the tree, with the house. So whilst I love acorns and squirrels, I don't really enjoy having to dig up oak saplings. But often in this time of the year, the oak trees and the acorns are quite brown. And I think that's also what inspired me with the color palette for this page. The time between green acorns and brown acorns is quite short. So when I see acorns this size, I tend to think of them more brown and sort of orangey undertones than I do green. Okay, so there we have it. Now I'm just going to build up the layers. It won't take too long. I might bring in some darker browns. Hello Bee, how are you? I hope that you are well. I've been seeing some of your beautiful colorings on Instagram and just think they're absolutely exquisite, so keep up the good work. Coming back to those squirrels, apparently, if I understand the story correctly, red squirrels are native to the UK, but the grey squirrels aren't, and they've kind of started overtaking, and there's less and less red squirrels. So the grey squirrels have become more of a pest because there's no, I suppose, natural predator to kind of keep them in check. So I was actually thinking for this page, I might actually make the squirrel up at the top of the page a grey squirrel and not a red squirrel, just to kind of tie in the pigeon colors, because I'm going to make the pigeon a wood pigeon. So I'm really using my garden habitat, because we also get quite a few wood pigeons in some of our trees. Alright, so now I'm coming back down to my goldenrod, but I'm not going to go over the entire acorn because I want to leave that highlighted zone for my highlight color. Now, when you are blending your lighter color into your darker colors, you don't always have to go into your deeper shadowed areas. If you just go into your mid-tone and out a little bit, you'll blend your colors very well, depending on how much shadow you want. So if you want a really deep shadow, you won't go over it with other colors because it's not necessary. But where you want to get a smooth gradient, you'll go into the next color a little bit and back out, and that's how you'll also smoothen out your blend. Yes, B, I agree with you. The grey squirrels do have a bit of a bad reputation, which is a bit unfortunate because they are really, really sweet. I don't think I've seen a red squirrel. Alright, this is the highlight. So this is Seashell Pink. And I'm just going to put it in my highlight area. And then we'll go back to building up the shadows. Now, I think last live video I did say that depending on how we put our pressure, this paper can do up to about 10 layers. Just depends on how heavy you are when you put your layers down. I'm already seeing that it's getting a little bit saturated, but the color is not as rich as I'd like it to be. Oh, thank you, B. Oh, I don't know if it was a mast year. I don't even know what a mast year is. But yes, I did notice we had a lot of acorns as well. But then again, I don't remember, you know, if it was more than last year or not, because it always just feels like a lot of acorns when we rake it up. Being South African, we don't get, and in our garden, our South African garden, we didn't have oak trees and we didn't really need to rake the garden much. So we're not as used to it as if we had a garden where we raked up every autumn. So yeah, not really very good at those sort of things. But the raking is a great job for my kids. So if they give me too much issues, I send them outside for chores. Sweep the driveway, rake the garden, pull out weeds. So I'm back to my burnt ochre, but I am thinking I'm going to bring in a darker brown for my shadowed areas. Oh, okay, well, that's really cool. I didn't know about that. Oh, it's cool to learn. Thanks. Thanks for sharing. I'm hoping next year I will get more luck with my fruit trees. We have a couple of dwarf fruit trees, and this winter they didn't actually, not winter, spring and summer, they didn't fruit. A previous year they did fruit quite well. Well, I had apples. They're still young trees, so this is probably going into their fourth season. So I think this is their fourth winter, and we tried really hard to not let our trees fruit too early. But we're also first time growing fruit trees, so we'll have to wait and see. So I am going to get out I think I'll try the Espresso, which is PC1099, see if I can deepen up shadowed areas on these acorns. So let's try some Espresso. Yeah, I think Espresso is definitely giving a better shadow here. And if you wanted to go even darker, you could also use a 90% warm grey. So our town high street has finally switched on the Christmas lights. So Christmas is really starting to kick up, and I think I've started hearing some Christmas music playing in some of the stores. So I think the Christmas spirit is going to start kicking in from now on up until Christmas, which is really cool. Oh, I'm going out here. All right, let's see if I move this over a slightly bit more, if you can see a bit better. All right, I'm going to use my dark brown ever so slightly in a very light way, and I'm just going to try and bring this brown into my lighter areas, but I don't want to overpower it. I just want to show that the acorn has got a bit of that brown going through. And this is where layering your colors, you can really get the orange undertones peeping through some of the other colors. So if you just use it lightly, it also knocks down the yellow and creates a bit more of that brown acorn look. But I'm holding my pencil quite far back to make sure I'm not dominating my acorns with this brown, but rather just pulling it through. And then I'll bring in my burnt ochre. and then the goldenrod. And you can do this until you are happy with the way your acorns look. You could stop here if you want and move on. What I've noticed with a lot of coloring pages, the ones that get a lot of attention on social media, generally they have quite rich tonal values, and the only way to get that really is to just keep layering and layering. So I'm back to my espresso. So if in doubt, add a couple more layers, or if you're not sure, you can always leave it, come back to it at a later stage, and just write down which pencils you used for where, and yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to my acorn caps, and for that I'm just using two pencils. I'm using Putty Beige PC1083 and 70% French Grey PC1074. So what I'm going to do is put a base coat of my Putty Beige, I noticed that the acorn caps, when the acorns are brown, they have this grayish undertone to them. So I thought that the Putty Beige and the French Grey would work quite well to try and mimic that color palette. So then the 70% French Grey, so where it's darkest, I can press heavier and then I come out lighter. If you have the patience for it, you could also stipple, so where you just press lots and lots of dots. I don't have the patience for that, but you could do that and it would add some texture to your acorn caps. I'm just going to do a basic gradient. Mainly because I just don't have the patience for stippling, which is another reason why at this stage I wouldn't do that pointillism coloring. I think it's really cool that other people have the patience for it and are up for the challenge. Not my kind of thing. It's very effective when done well. Yes, I can imagine that it is quicker with pens. Although I do confess, the thought of doing pointillism with pens and getting my whole hand covered in pen, there's a part of me that's like, oh, that would be great, and there's another part of me going, no, dirt. Alright, so we're going to need a little bit of black for some of these acorns, especially when you've got a group of them kind of with each other. I think it will work quite well to have a bit of black to just redefine where each acorn is sitting. So this is the black, and okay, so then I come in with my Putty beige again. Oh, well done, Dawn. Do you like to use gel pens a lot? I'm trying to use mine a bit more. I still use them more for embellishing than I do for colouring. But I do like glitter gel pens. So if I bring my black in here, just add a bit more depth, and then my Putty beige. My 70% French grey. Oh, cool. I have noticed that you can blend with gel pens, especially if they're wet. Sometimes I know I tried it the other day. I took two colors relatively close, but one dark and one lighter, and I tried blending them, and I was surprised actually at how well they do blend into each other. So this is still my Putty beige. And then I go back to my 70% French grey. And if I bring in a little bit of that black, and then go over the black with the grey. Now you can also use a 10% French grey if you want to just put in some highlighted areas, and if you want to just lighten things up as well. Oh, thank you, Dawn. Okay, so that's the idea for all the acorns. So we'll do a few more, and then I will show you how we'll do the branches. Now, with the smaller acorns up here, they will be mainly your lighter shades of brown. So if I use the Seashell pink and place my highlighted area, and then the goldenrod, the burnt ochre, back over with the goldenrod, and then back with the burnt ochre, and just really, you could do a medium pressure here because they're quite small, so I don't think it needs to have a lot of attention. If you want a bit more separation, you could use a bit of the dark brown, just to show that you've got some of the acorns, young acorns, sitting on each other. And then your seashell. A bit more of the goldenrod. The burnt ochre. Yeah, and then I would just carry on moving around the page now. You've got a few more of the younger acorns over here, so again, it's really just be the same process. Seashell pink first. And then this one here isn't going to get a lot of light on it because it's got the shadows from the other acorns, so you wouldn't have to really worry about that. Goldenrod. And burnt ochre. And then after I've finished these young acorns, I'm going to move on to the branches. And then hopefully we can move on to one of the squirrels, or well, actually the chipmunk, and I can show you a bit of fur. Bearing in mind that fur starting with pencil is quite slow. But fortunately these are quite small animals, so it shouldn't be too bad. Some dark brown. Burnt ochre. Goldenrod. And then back over your highlight with Seashell pink. Okay, so let's have a look at our branches. We're going to need Espresso PC1099. We're going to need Goldenrod PC1034, and we are going to need PC945, which is Sienna brown. So I'm really trying to reuse some of the colors that we have got and not overdo it. So I'm going to use the Espresso first, PC1099, and just put in where the shadows are. I find sometimes putting in the shadows first really does help me see the picture and see where everything should go. Now in some of the smaller areas, if you wanted to use a gel pen, you could. I think it would work really well. Alright, I'm going to zoom you out a little bit so that you can see more of these branches. There we go. Let's have a see if that helps. I always like the highlights of the branches to be on the top, so I just think at the moment that that's where the highlight should be. Okay, so next I'm going to take my Sienna brown, and so I'm going the opposite way. I'm going from darkest to lightest. And I think for like the branches you could press quite hard because they don't really need a lot of attention. They are sitting right in the back. I mean, your focal point is really the animals, possibly the clock face and the central part of the birdhouse. So your branches don't need to have as much attention. They're a bit more in the middle ground. Cheers, B. I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it. Okay, so now I'm going to use the Goldenrod as my highlight. Now we can tone it down a little bit with the 10% French grey. Because actually I'm not sure that the Goldenrod is the best color for the highlight. So I'm going to try this 10% French grey. If I go over it, it should mute it down a bit because greys soften yellows. And if I go back over with my Sienna brown and I just liven up a bit more, then I think this works better than the Goldenrod. So I think I'm going to use the 10% French grey instead of a Goldenrod. I think it will work better as a highlight. So we'll test it down here. And then bring back that espresso. Sometimes when I do my swatches, it looks okay as a swatch, but when you put it with the rest of the page, it doesn't always work. And that's sort of what I'm having at the moment. So 10% French grey. And if you go over the 10% French grey very lightly, it will look a bit more natural than a straight off-white. So I'm just alternating my 10% French grey with my Sienna brown and my espresso, and I'm just building up my branches in the hopes that they will stand out, but also not blend into each other. So I don't want them standing out to the point where it doesn't look natural, but I also don't want them completely disappearing either. Alright, so Sienna brown very lightly over, and then I use my 10% French grey to create my highlight. And then you can go over it again and just pull it in. Espresso, and just make sure my darks are dark. Sienna brown, and my 10% French grey. Alright, so it's pretty much the same thing on all my branches. Sienna brown. Then back in with the espresso. Right, we are almost done with these branches, and then we can move on to the chipmunks, and I will show you a bit of fur. Now what I am going to be doing is the rest of the acorns and the leaves I will be doing off camera, just so that it doesn't take up too much of your time, and also it just keeps the video moving forward. But basically the same principles I have been using in the lives I will be applying for the rest of it, and then I will try and show you the animals, the clock face, the birdhouse, so it's a bit more interesting to watch. Because yeah, going over and doing a whole lot of leaves, whilst it can be relaxing, it can also be boring. And what you want to try and do is just vary where you put your highlights, and that will help keep your leaves interesting and also a bit more realistic. Okay, so I think that's that for now. So what we're going to do for the chipmunks is we're going to use some of the colors that we've already used. So we're going to use Sienna brown, we're going to keep our espresso, we're going to keep our goldenrod, and we're going to use our dark brown, and then we're going to bring out some other colors. Now, as always, I will put these in the description below, so don't worry about keeping track of them. I will have them readily available for you. We're going to use some beige, some light umber, some white. So let me get all my colors out. You'll have to forgive me for using a really small light beige. I haven't pulled out my big one yet, and it will take a while to find. Okay, so beige, white, light umber, got sienna brown, dark brown, espresso. We need French grey 20% and warm grey 90%. Okay, so let's have a look. So what I've got open on my laptop is a picture of a chipmunk, just so I can see more or less where everything is kind of going. So what I'm going to do is, using my espresso, I'm just going to very lightly put in his dark stripes. So I'm going to make this one dark. Now I've never colored a chipmunk before, so if I'm doing the stripes in the wrong order, please forgive me. You can always, if you know which order they're supposed to be in, you can do it on your page in the right order. But this is kind of how I'm interpreting it. Then we put a bit more here in his ear. So what I'm really going to be doing is looking first, before I do any hair texture, I am looking at what colors are underneath as a base on the fur. So I'm going to plot out my colors. So I'm using beige, and over here there's over here and on his nose. Then you've got under his eye here as well. And on the tips of his ears. So I'm just trying to get my head around where most of this color is going to be. And he's got quite a lot of grays as well in him, so we might need a few more cool grays or warm grays, most likely warm grays. So along here, so what if I zoom you into this chipmunk so you can really see? Now on his back he has a lot more grays and browns than he has the yellows. So the yellows and the beige will be kind of on the edges of his tail, on the underside of his tail. So we could use it a bit all over the place. I'm going to bring in a 20% warm grey, and I'm going to start pulling it in. Remember, I'm doing this as a base. I don't want to have first strokes just yet. I'm just getting my head around the colors and where everything should be placed. And it's not going to look realistic. It's just really using a reference photo to get the gist of it. So don't worry, it's not going to be some fancy realism that you know, as a beginner or an intermediate, you're going to go, oh my gosh, I can't do this. No. We're going to do this and it's going to look amazing because it's our art. And we'll just add a little bit of fur texture to it. That's all. Alright, so there's a bit more of this grey coming here. And it's just subtle hints of grey. Right, his paws are actually more beige and possibly goldenrod. So we'll put beige here. And we might actually bring in some of that seashell pink. And you can throw in a little bit of goldenrod just for a bit of brightness, really. We don't want him to have yellow feet, it's just brightening it up. And seashell pink on his nose. We might bring in a bit more pink. Now in his ear he has more light umber, so we can, and it will be light umber and sienna brown. So you can just blend those colors in. And then follow it with the beige. and a bit of that grey on the side of his ear here. The light umber. And some dark brown. Sienna brown just for redness. And you use your beige to just blend it out. Okay, so we're going to bring in some goldenrod. And now this is where I'm going to bring in that flicking motion. But I'm just doing it lightly, and I'm doing short feathering strokes. And I'm trying to go in the direction of the hair. Now, I don't want so much of it here in these stripes. I want it more over here. So I'm just doing it lightly, and it's really similar to what you would do if you were doing hair. All right, now you do want to go in the direction of the fur, but you also don't want it all going in the same line. You want to have some of it in just kind of crossing over each other. I'll try to keep my hand out of the way so you can see, and you really do want to keep the strokes a bit of a medium length, so you don't want to have them too long, otherwise it's going to look like a long-haired chipmunk. Now what you can do is use alcohol markers, or well, alcohol markers on this paper wouldn't work, but water-based markers. You could use pastels, you could try Inktense if you want to, or watercolor medium if you want to be brave enough, and that will also help you to layer down these base coats. And please don't stress if it doesn't look how you want, or if you find it challenging. I'm right there with you. This is amongst my few attempts at doing fur, so I'm not expecting it to be, you know, phenomenal, and it's okay. You know, we're practicing and we're getting the idea, so be kind to yourself and know you're not alone in trying new things. We'll get there together. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to bring in some light umber. And we're just doing the same thing. We're just layering up these colors, and we don't want to block color them because that will look unnatural. But what we are doing is just trying to layer the different colors into it. and this is going to help all these different colors stand out from each other, and they'll layer on over each other to create this, you know, quite hopefully chipmunky look. Now there is a technique I haven't tried where you can take a craft knife and just lightly scratch off your highlights. Now I'm a bit anxious about doing that. However, there are other techniques before you start a picture where you can take wax paper and a graphite pencil, and you just place in your white highlighted areas. So those are some of the more advanced, I suppose, techniques you have available. So if you're up for those, I'm happy to try them out with you if you like. So like the grey on his tail is actually a layer. He doesn't have like a grey stripe. He has some of these hairs are grey, so we'll bring that in as well. And as we get closer to the end, where we need those individual strokes, we will be a bit more pedantic about keeping our pencils sharp, because with fur and hair you really need sharp pencils, and that's what gives it those individual hair strands. Okay, now we're going to do some sienna brown. Alright, and up here he's got quite a bit of sienna brown. Now we can bring a little bit of grey by these eye stripes here, and just push it into down Alright, this is PC1058 and we're going to use this in the very deeper shadows. Okay, so let's bring in some of the dark brown and just go over some of that grey, and it will just soften it up. So now what I'm going to do is go over it again with some beige and some goldenrod and just build up these layers, and also the light umber. And here I'm going to sharpen my pencils because now I'm going to want to be quite particular about my fur strokes. So having very sharp pencils is quite crucial to creating nice fur. Now, a chipmunk's fur is not as short as a horse's fur, so you need short to medium strokes, whereas with a horse you could probably get away with a bit more of the blending, just a gradient from dark to light. But with animals like squirrels and chipmunks or short-haired dogs, you want to create those small to medium-sized strokes so that the fur is emphasized. Again, you don't need to have an excessive amount, but it does help to just give a bit of texture. Sorry, I'm just making sure all my pencils are as sharp as I can possibly get them. All right, so let's go in with our beige. Now here you can always just blend it all out just by doing a normal coloring, and you'll just blend and smoothen what you've done already into each other. And I wouldn't worry about that if you do, because we can build up the layers and we can recreate those strokes. And I have done this before, and it has still turned out okay. I did a mouse in The Ink House by Rory Dobner, and I was trying to balance the colors, so I remember taking grays and just doing a light coloring over what I'd already, or my already done first strokes, and it still turned out okay, because you just put it back in and then you go over it again. Now with this one, we can really just block this out. Alright, so let's take our goldenrod and we start with our feathered strokes again. So you're going short little strokes and you're kind of crisscrossing over them at times. Okay, so now I'm going to take my light umber and I'm just going to do the same thing. And you want to aim to be able to do the feathering stroke in both directions, up and down. And then we're going to do our burnt sienna. And then some dark brown. And then we're going to bring our 90% French grey, sorry, warm grey. Alright, let's use a bit of white and see if we can get a bit of highlights going on in here. Alright, a bit more of our 20% warm grey. And some seashell pink. I think we've reached about saturation on here, but we'll see if we can add a bit more. So this is the light umber. And a bit more sienna brown. And 20% French grey. (1058) 90% warm grey. So if we get a bit of Deco Peach for his ears here and his nose. Let's try a blush pink. Might get a bit more pink. Yeah, there you go. I think that's possibly the best I can get. His fur. This is the beige. But the paper is feeling quite waxy, so I don't think there's much more I can do. I mean, he looks a little fluffy. So that is a positive. I think for the other chipmunk on this side here, I can try a burnishing pencil. So the Derwent burnisher is designed to kind of create erase tooth, so it ruins the tooth of the paper when you use it. But if we put in a few bits of the burnisher as white highlights, we won't see it until we do. So if you would like, what I'm going to do is I'll test that on this page and give it a try, and then you can see what it does. And if you don't like it, you can just do the hair kind of the same way I did the first chipmunk. So that way I can do the testing and it's a bit easier for you. Alright, so this acorn bit here will be a different shade. It will be more your beiges. So this is beige. And we'll have a bit more of the seashell pink. And some burnt ochre. And the 20% French grey. Beige. And light umber. Okay, so chipmunk is eating on a nut. You can't see his back. Down here will be brown, so we'll give him a brown nose. This is dark brown. We'll bring in some espresso. Give him a different nose. And then we're going to use our burnishing tool. So now you won't see these strokes, but they are going to be in the fur. And when I put over a wax layer, it's okay, he's going to have not much in there. Okay, so now if I take my beige and I color over the whole page, you'll see these marks on the creature, and that's going to be those white patches of fur or strands of hair, and no matter how I color now, they're going to stay there. If I use the dark brown, I can build this up, but in theory, those white lines I used with the burnishing should stay. If I use a burnt sienna, and espresso, %, warm grey, the burnt sienna, and burnt sienna down here. Dark brown, 90% warm grey, this is the light umber, Let's bring in some goldenrod. The seashell pink here on his hands. This is some burnt ochre. That was beige. I'm going to bring in a bit of grey. Then the dark brown. Then we want some espresso. Seashell pink. Burnt umber, well, light umber. Some white. So yeah, my attempt with a Derwent burnisher hasn't actually worked out very well. So either I did my pressure wrong or it just doesn't work on this paper. Both are doable. But you know, it's testing it, it's trying, seeing what works. And you don't know unless you try, so always remember that. Beige. Some goldenrod. some blush pink again. I'll just do on the tips of the ears. Some seashell pink here. We can add a bit of blush pink. Some sienna brown. I have 90% warm grey here. Right, so I'm going to zoom you out. That is it for today's live video. I hope you've enjoyed this. As you can see, I'm attempting fur. It's not perfect. It's just an effort. It will develop and grow as the more I practice fur, and that's the beauty of coloring. The more we color, the more we grow, the more we learn, the more we practice, the better we get. So it's not at all my best fur, but it's an effort, and we don't know unless we try. Thank you so much for joining me. I do hope you have enjoyed this series of live videos. I will be with you in 2 weeks' time to continue this page, and we will focus on the squirrel, the bird, and possibly the clock face as well. And I will plan out the rest. Thank you again for joining me. I do appreciate your support and all the interaction that you chat to me during the live videos. It really helps. I hope you have a fantastic week and enjoy the start of Christmas planning and celebrations. I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Until next time, take care. Bye for now.